Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kidney Conversations. This is yours truly, C. Allen, better known as Chef Renee, and I'm excited today because I have a legend live in our studio. When I tell you, not only am I a graduate and alumnus of Morehouse College, we know that, but Howard University is where I received my master's degree training from. And I'm excited because today, live in studio, is Dr. Clive Callender. Let's give him a big hand, guys. The thing that I'm excited about is Dr. Clive Callender. Dr. Callender, who everyone knows, he is the professor of surgery at Howard University, and he's the founder of the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program. So we want to talk to him about organ donations today. And I think it's important because in the community, especially the African American community, a lot of people have no clue about organ donations. So we thought, why not have the one, the only Dr. Callender to come in to share information about that. So Dr. Callender, I want to start off with how long you've been in the field. You guys got to hear this. How long you've been in the field, and then I want you to go into what does the Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program. I want you to tell me about that after you tell us how long you've been in the industry.
Well, I started off in 1971, so that's about 50 years ago. I went away to do training in Minnesota to learn to become a transplant surgeon. Came back to Howard University and started the transplant program there, and that was the beginning of MOTEP, the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program, because we found out that blacks were not donating. Actually, in 1978, members of the Southeastern Organ Procurement Foundation came to me and said, "We want you to try and help us solve this problem. 70% of the people on dialysis in the southeastern part of the United States are black, but less than 3% of blacks are donors, and we need your help." Now, what happens when people of color are asked to help happened to us. Yes, we want your help, but we don't have any funds to help you. So we went to Howard University and asked them for $500. And Dr. James Baton, the psychologist, and myself and his team of students, we went into the District of Columbia, and we used that $500 to get 40 people to participate in this survey to our focus session to find out why African Americans were reluctant to become donors. And we found out the 5 reasons we were reluctant to become donors. First, we were unaware, African Americans were unaware of the fact that we have so much hypertension and diabetes, the number 1 and number 2 causes of kidney failure. Okay. And that we need organs more than any other ethnic group. We have hypertension and diabetes 4 times as often as other ethnic groups. And we therefore, that was number 1. Number 2 was the fact that they believed in religious myths and misperception. Concerns that in that great getting up morning, when you go to the pearly gates, you only had 1 kidney, you only get 1 wing. You don't have your eyes, you can't see great-grandmama in the hereafter. If you don't have your heart and soul are gone. So we then advised them that it isn't giving that you receive. It's in pardoning that you're pardoned. It's in dying that you're born to eternal life. Thus said Jesus Christ, and most religions accept that. And so it is okay to donate. The third had to do with a basic concern about the Tuskegee incident and the fact that we had been used as guinea pigs. And so that was the third obstacle we had to overcome. The fourth had to do with a fear that if I signed an organ donor card and I go to the hospital, they might be more interested in getting my organs and tissues than with saving my life. And the final one had to do with the issue about racism. Concerned that you want to take my black organs and give them to white people. Of course, I found out as I started the transplant program that the opposite was true. 80% of the donors for my black patients were white. and only 20% were black. And so what happened as a consequence of that survey was that when we started the survey, 2 out of 40 signed donor cards. At the end of the 2-hour sessions, all 40 signed donor cards. This said to us that we may have had the solution to the problem because we had a surgeon, we had a transplant recipient, and a donor. And so we thought we would go into the community with that group of people to educate and empower them to become part of the solution to the problem. And that was the beginning of the DC Organ Donor Program, which did so well that the Dow Chemical Company funded us to go across the country. And this was so successful that we realized that we had done what was thought not to be possible. We'd got the black community to become part of the solution to the problem. And if we could do this in the black community, we could do this in all communities. And thus was born MOTEP, with the concept we'll take our methodology and apply it to every ethnic group. And for that reason, in 1991, we conceptualized MOTEP. And now, some 30 years later, well, I'm pleased to tell you that the number of minorities have doubled. The number of African Americans who donate have quadrupled. And so I can tell you that we made a difference that needed to be made, a difference that people thought was impossible to accomplish. But thanks to my faith in God and my belief and my willingness to do what He led me to do, we've made a difference in the minority community and the African American community.
That's awesome. Then tell us, Dr. Callender, how old would a donor have to, how old does a donor have to be?
Well, the oldest, okay, we're talking about organs and tissues. Now, for organs, you probably, the oldest donor is in the 80s. For tissues, it's in above 100, because you can do a corneal transplant at 100. But most organs, the limit is in the 80s.
Okay, so what I want you to do, Dr. Callender, is I want you to talk to us in reference to how do we break that fear to become an organ donor? Because so many people, and this is the funny thing, everybody, people say all the time, oh, see, Alan, Shepard, Nate, you put everything on Facebook. Trust me, if I put everything on Facebook, that's not the case. However, what I did was when I was on dialysis, I went to Facebook asking for a donor. And in the beginning, doctor, the depression really set in because so many people were responding and saying, oh, yes, anything for you, Mr. Bennett, anything for you. And I would keep calling the doctors over and over again saying, well, did anybody sign up? Anybody sign up? And that answer was no. And it wasn't until we had another doctor that we had on previously, Dr. Melanson, you know him, where he came into the radio station and tried to help out to break down all of those myths. And one of those was like my niece wanted to know, could she still have a baby if she gave me one of her kidneys? So my next question is, can you really live a great life with one kidney?
You can live a perfectly normal life. Some people are born with only one kidney. And so you only need one kidney to have a perfectly normal life, and donors and recipients can give birth. So not only can donors do it, recipients as well, so that it would not affect you in any way to donate, because you can do everything that everybody else can do.
So what would you say, how would we be able to get that 18 to 30-year-old more knowledgeable to become an organ or a tissue donor?
Well, my technique that has worked through the years has been to go to the people, have a face-to-face dialogue, and let them understand that what we're doing is in their best interest. In other words, we are being selfish, because when we donate, we're giving to each other. And so for that reason, my methodology has been to really let people know the facts about the matter and understand that we need organs more than any other ethnic group. And so the person we're saving is ourselves. And that kind of selfish motivation has been very effective at getting people to change their minds about it.
Perfect. So at this time, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we want to talk to Dr. Callender about paying for a kidney. We want to talk to him about that because the first thing that I thought about once they told me that I had to go on dialysis, I said, I'm going to a third world country and get me a kidney, give them $10,000. They said it can put somebody through college with that and keep it moving. So we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we want to know about, can we pay for a kidney? We'll be right back. This is Kidney Conversations, and we'll be right back after these messages. Hey guys, this is Callender. I'm back here and I'm live with Dr. Callender here in the studio, and I'm excited because this is a legend here. Before we went to break, we wanted to know about paying for a kidney. We know, well, I'm not going to say we know. I know that it's illegal, but I want the doctor to explain to us why. So Dr. Callender, the question is, why is it illegal to pay someone to be a donor?
That's an interesting question because I happen to be the only black on the National Organ Transplant Task Force. And in 1984, it was made illegal to buy or sell organs in the United States of America. And so from that point on, and including today, it is illegal to buy and sell organs in this country.
Okay, so Doc, now, what would you, okay, in my situation, once I received the transplant, I blessed my donor with the hair salon. She was my manager. The story went viral, all of that. And I'm just grateful today because of that. Now, some of the backlash that I received when I was on, D.L. Hughley had did an article, The Shade Room had did an article. Some of the people were saying, oh, he gave, basically they was trying to say that, we had an arrangement that if you give me the kidney, I'll give you the salon, which is completely untrue. However, I do think that the conversation must be had in reference to how a lot of African Americans are so desperate to get a kidney that they're willing to do almost anything. So the question would be is, what would you tell that? Because let me tell you what I did. I came back to the school and I have students who are very close to me, and I started sharing with them my story to see if that would maybe incite them or maybe trigger something in them to maybe give me a donor, and it didn't happen. And then a lot of I said, I have nieces and nephews and all of that, so I'm good. But come to find out, and then not only that, but then my brother, who's a year older than me, I thought that he would be the person. So I went into a deep depression. So my next question would be, what would you tell the folks that's on dialysis who have went through their family, went through their friends, and they find themselves on year 2 or 3 on dialysis, but they're really, really, really urging for a kidney?
Well, I think that your question is a good one because right now you have to wait 5 to 10 years for a kidney. I think if you can find people who would become a donor, whether they're friends or not, I think that's the best way to get it done. Some people have taken a step further than that. They will go to foreign countries and try to get a kidney. That is a problem only in the sense that it's legal in their countries. It's not legal in our country. But when you come back to the United States, it's a little harder to find somebody to take care of you, but you will find somebody to take care of you. So that there are people who can afford it, who have actually gone to other countries and gotten transplants, just as you talked about doing. And they have had successful transplants and come back to this country. So that's something you can do if you've got enough money to do it and you're willing to go to another country and take it. In many ways, it's taking advantage of somebody who's so poor that they are willing to risk their life to give the kidney to somebody who's a stranger. So that has been done and is being done. It's just that the manner in which it's done is a little a little shady.
I was just, that was the word I was going to say, a little on the shady side. Okay, now, that was good, and I thank you for that. Now, you mentioned that sometimes people may not want to work on those people or may not want to treat them. I want you to go in depth a little bit about that, because I know that where I go to the George Washington University Transplant Institute, the GW Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center is where I go. And I know that I have tons of visits, tons of medication, tons of advice. What would you say to that person who went out of the country, and that doctor is out of the country, and if people aren't really willing to really kind of take them in like that? And you did allude to some people, you know, will be able to do that, but then would they have to like be in close contact with that third world doctor, or would they have to come and do like a whole analysis? I mean, how would that work if somebody did decide to go out of the country?
As a transplant surgeon, anybody who's had a transplant and wants me to take care of them, I would be glad to. And there are many surgeons who are just like me. So there are exceptions to the rule, but the majority of transplant surgeons would take care of you regardless of where you got your transplant from.
Okay, that's very good. So now, why do you think, in your vast knowledge and experience, why do you think that a lot of African Americans are very hesitant?
I think, as I mentioned, the 5 reasons, they are all legitimate reasons why an African American would be hesitant. We have a long history of racism in this country, and so distrust is everywhere. That's why people aren't willing to take the vaccine, because they are not trusting. And so it takes a one-on-one type of approach that allows you to really understand that it is in your best interest to donate. You know, we have many people who come off the street who donate for a stranger. And so some of the people you talk about at George Washington have gotten their transplants from people who don't even know them. They just came off the street and gave a directed donor. And these are altruistic donors who have nothing to gain, but they just love. And so I would emphasize to those people the importance of religion, Christianity, and to love yourself, take care of yourself, and give. It is in giving that you receive, and it's pardon that you're pardoning, and it's in dying you're born to eternal life. So those are the aspects that I take the high road on in terms of trying to get people to understand why, in spite of the way we've been treated in the past, it's important for us today and in the future to move beyond the fact that we've been treated, and institutionalized racism is alive and well. But in spite of that, we need to do what we can to stay alive.
So where would you recommend, let's say here in the nation's capital, where would you recommend the population, and I keep saying 18 to 30 because that's the majority of our audience today, and I wanted to know where would they go to get more information, because it's important for them to know, to be more confident about if they give up a kidney, that they will still be able to live a nice, long, productive life. And I think that that's what we're trying to drive home to the audience, that if you know that you have an aunt, you know that you have an uncle, a cousin, a neighbor, someone that is on the dialysis machine, trust me, I tell you, I would not wish that on anyone. And I think that it is important. However, I would like to say to our dialysis community that are watching that we are rooting for you. And we know that it starts in our mind, having a great mindset to continue to go through. However, Dr. Callender, the advice that you would give the younger ones that may know somebody on the machine to give them the confidence that, yes, you can share and give them the gift of life, and you also can live also.
And another thing is important, that the younger people learn to love themselves and take care of themselves, because living a healthy life becomes critical. Eating the right foods, drinking a lot of water, exercising, meditating, All of those things become important because one of the things that we don't talk a lot about is the fact we want to decrease the need for organ transplants by having people take care of themselves, to eat as little red meat as possible, eat as little fried foods as possible, drink as much water as possible, exercise at least 150 minutes a week, 150 minutes a week, and recognize that when you love yourself and take care of yourself, you'll be in a better position perhaps to be a donor if you need to.
So then, Doctor, which is really good, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So, and I looked at the audience and some of their eyes went up when you said about the red meat and the fried foods. I want you to talk a little bit more about that because I'm not going to mention no names on air. However, I do walk through the cafeteria at the Bennett Career Institute and I see chicken wings piled up with hot sauce, ketchup, mumbo sauce, all of that stuff, and they love it. And the whole room is smelling up a storm with their wings and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to judge, hallelujah. However, I want you to talk to them about three things. What is the myth about dark sodas? We hear about that a lot. And then about the red meat and the fried foods. Talk to us about it.
Okay, the dark sodas there's a lot of evidence that, for example, dark sodas, the diet sodas as well, are associated with more hypertension and more diabetes than anything else. That relates to the dark sodas. As far as the red meat, it's clear that red meat is associated with cancer. Red meat is associated with heart disease. Red meat is associated with short lifespan. So that if you were to eat only one meal a week with red meat, and understanding chicken, poultry, and fish are desirable, but it's the red meat that studies have demonstrated unequivocally that they contribute to short living. And I think that I can't overemphasize the importance thereafter of the meditation and exercise. Sometimes we talk about exercise, but really about meditation. But that's something else that reduces stress, which is one of the most important factors that causes us to have shorter lives. I've been blessed. I'm 84 years old. God has blessed me. But I think that it is important to emphasize that we need to take better care of ourselves, eat better, have less fried food, have less red meat, more fruits, more vegetables, more water.
More fruits, more vegetables, more water. And that goes into my little shameless plug about how important it is for you to always tune into the Kidney Cafe, because that's what it's about. It's about lifestyle changes, options, and healthier choices for you. So, Doc, we all talked about the industry and we talked about African Americans. And one of the things that you brought up that I thought was amazing, I just had a meeting with the students at the Bennett Career Institute yesterday, and I talked about the importance of meditating, the importance of turning off the TV, turning that radio off, taking opportunity to in tune with yourself, because what we're realizing, especially doing my research with the Kidney Cafe, is a lot of this disease can be avoided if we start working on us. I want you to talk about that for a second. Working on us. You mentioned about the diet, the exercise, the red meat, the fried food, and it's really important that we get our emotional, we get our, not just our physical, but our mental. I want you to talk a little bit about that, Doc, about the emotional and the mental state in the African American community that could help avoid a lot of the diseases that we're facing today.
One of the problems is that we are faced with racism. Racism is a source of stress. And in order to counter racism, we need to spend more time meditating. People will talk about exercising. They really talk about meditation and the fact that that relieves stress. And stress is a killer. And so the more we meditate, the more we exercise, the longer we'll live.
Absolutely. So at this time, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break so we can find out if there's any questions that we have in the audience, so we can talk to the audience, because our time is almost up. Dr. Callender, it has been an immense pleasure to have you here on the Kidney Conversation stage. And I know this is not going to be your last time here. And the funny thing is, Doc, we're going to go to break in a second. The funny thing is, I was at my doctor's appointment with Dr. Dyson, Wanda Dyson, and she said, oh, Dr. Callender, we all know Dr. Callender, and would you believe he's 80-some years old and still taking public transportation? And she said, the funny thing she said was, and we talked about it, she said, and he's probably doing that because he know how important it is to get his exercise. And we just talked about that on Monday, and he brought it up today. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to address the audience and to see if there's any questions that they have. So we'll be right back after these messages. Hey guys, so we're back live here in the studios of Kidney Conversation. So we're going to go to the audience. So what we want you to do is say your name, give us your full name and your question.
My name is Ruth Alexander, and my question is, at what age a senior should receive a kidney from a person?
Actually, the oldest age I know is somebody in their 80s, because one of the things about being a transplant recipient, there is no age limit. It's all about how healthy you are, whether you have any comorbidities or other factors. But so age is not an issue in terms of receiving a transplant. You can be 90 and receive a transplant, as long as you're healthy enough to withstand the surgery. And the rule they go by is that if you're healthy enough to live 2 years after surgery, then you're a candidate for transplant, regardless of your age.
Okay, at my age of 78, would I receive a transplant from a 12-year-old, or kidney or liver?
Well, the interesting thing about donation is that the younger donors are more likely to be rejected. The older donors are less likely to be rejected. So if you got somebody more close to your age, you might be better off. Although the younger donors are good, it's just that they have more.
All right, thank you so much. So we have another question in the audience. So what we want you to do is we want you to state your name, and you can give us your question for Dr. Callender.
Good morning, my name's Cherry. My question is, do you have to be the same blood type as your donor?
That's a great question, and I love it because it points out something that has changed through the years. When I first started out, you had to be the same blood type. Now we know, and matter of fact, at the George Washington University Transplant Institute, they're one of the centers that does ABO incompatible transplants successfully. This was first started at Johns Hopkins, and they proved that you can do transplants across ABO compatibility and have the same success rate as if you did not cross the ABO blood compatibility barrier. So the answer is yes, you can have transplants. And the place to have it here in DC is at the George Washington University Transplant Institute, because that's one of the issues that has made George Washington such a good transplant institute for people of color, because they're doing things there that very few other centers are doing.
I have one more question. My second question would be, would you encourage people who are on dialysis to form networks if they have donors that doesn't necessarily match with them, but perhaps they could, do an exchange with someone else who has a donor that doesn't match with them, but their donor may, match with another person?
Now, that also is another area that people have not championed. But it's an area that actually Dr. Melanson has championed. Sharing, donor sharing, and taking an organ that is one of your relatives that cannot match you, but will match somebody else. And I think that that is something else that is championed by George Washington University. And I think more people need to understand that even if your donor is not good for you, it can be good for somebody else. And I think that's a concept that will result in more people of color being transplanted. And I would recommend to people of color who have issues and are concerns that the George Washington University Transplant Institute is the place to go, because Dr. Malahansan is one who champions doing those things which are extraordinary to help people of color.
Hey guys, well, our time is up here on Kidney Conversations, and we're so excited that Dr. Callender was able to take time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. I want you to tune in next time to Kidney Conversations as we continue to enlighten the community and give them education in reference to kidney disease. I want you to have a great day, and remember, always pamper yourself as your duty. Why? Because you are worth it. Have a good day.